You can't just wake up and be like, okay, I'm gonna meet, my future boyfriend today. I've been thinking about this thing and now here it is. I wrote this and then I pretty much forgot about it. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm really excited for this one. I've been hinting at this, I think, for a little while, but I am finally ready to do my little manifestation, how I manifested my boyfriend video. And I'm pretty excited, so let's just jump right into it. So this whole journey kind of starts, I want to say 2018, 2019. That's when I was first kind of learning about the law of attraction, manifestation. I was kind of hearing about that really for the first time. I think I was watching a couple of different YouTubers. I was following a couple of people on Instagram who were always talking about manifestation, and I had no idea what that meant. I had never heard that term before. And then they started recommending books like the Jerry and Esther Hicks Teachings of Abraham books. And I was really curious because I didn't grow up hearing about anything like that. Like, I didn't really grow up hearing about how your thoughts creating your reality. That's just not how I grew up. It was a really interesting concept to me to be like, wait, I can think things into reality, like I have that much control. I just kind of always grew up thinking like you just get the hand that you're dealt and you do the best with it, and if you work really hard, then you can get all of your desires. So I started diving into the Jerry and Esther Hicks books. I want to say the first one I bought was just The Law of Attraction. I remember posting about it, that I was reading it on Instagram. It was really the first body, mind, spirit book that I had read. I can say that they've changed my life. The main thing that I want to focus on in this particular video was obviously manifesting my boyfriend. That's why you're all here. Before we get into that, I briefly want to mention the first couple of things that I had manifested that kind of set up me originally journaling about him. So one of the first things that happened, I was in college. This would have been 2016, 2017. I remember thinking my dorm room looked very kind of lackluster. It needed some life in it. It needed some plants or something. But I was a busy college student. I was working a part-time work study job. And so I hadn't made the time yet to go to a hardware store or a plant store or whatever and get a plant. I never scripted anything. I didn't write anything down about how, I really wish I had plants for my dorm room. But I'd been thinking about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. I was kind of imagining what I wanted. And I thought it would be cool to have some succulents because they don't need necessarily as much water and light, because I would be at the library for hours sometimes. I might forget to water it, so I knew I needed something kind of hardy. And there was a plant sale at the elementary school where I would go for 20, 30 hours out of the week for my work study job. I remember they kind of pooled their money, and it was only a couple dollars, I think, but they pulled their money and bought me a succulent. And they were like, hey, we bought this for you. And I remember I was doing something, I was taking off my backpack or my coat or something. And I remember I stopped halfway through because I looked down and I saw the succulent that I had pictured, being in my room. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. I've been thinking about this thing and now here it is. And so that was the first time that I was connecting the dots between okay, I want something, I've been thinking about this thing, I've been visualizing it in my room, and now poof, it's here. It was odd, but it was really cool. So fast forward to 2019, and I'm getting pretty into it. So I've started journaling at this point. I think this was my first one, actually. Yes. And so I was kind of understanding the power of writing things down and journaling and getting my thoughts down on the page. I found this really pretty journal on Etsy. This is from Infinite Mantra. I will, if these are still available, I'll definitely link them for you guys. I've got a couple here from 2020 and 2021. So I'm not going to go into what the law of attraction is. There are a million videos online that really do a much better job of how I would probably articulate what the law of attraction is. There's so much that I'm still understanding and wrapping my brain around. So at the beginning of 2019, I had journaled some intentions. I had some financial ones, paying more than the minimum amount on my loans, which I was doing. Finishing the first draft of a manuscript, I did that. One of the intentions was have a meaningful romantic relationship. And I remember feeling a little bit silly when I wrote that, because you can't just wake up and be like, okay, I'm gonna meet, my future boyfriend today. And it's not really something you can like plan, but it was an intention that I had, and so I wrote it down. So that's really all it was. It was just kind of wishful thinking at the time. And so then on the next page, I got a little more specific. And so I wrote some things down. I wrote 9 things down that I would like to have in a future partner. Oh, he'll be funny, he'll be kind to himself and others, takes care of his mind and body. One thing I said was he has long, dark hair. So for me, this was kind of a mix of physical traits, but also personality traits. Like, I didn't really, honestly, put a whole bunch of thought into it. These are very general things that like a lot of people would put down on a list about what they find attractive in a potential partner. But this was just kind of just an exercise in, again, wishful thinking. I wasn't taking it too seriously. It was very much just like, it would be nice if he liked to go to art museums with me, or if he really has a job that he's passionate about, which that's also something that he's kind of working towards. So not everything on this list came true. The person who came into my life does match a lot of these. So the person I was kind of envisioning in my head when I was writing this list was like sort of a young Keanu Reeves, right? So like you gotta dream big. So I was envisioning like a late 80s, early 90s Keanu Reeves. I definitely had a moment of obsession with him. There's a couple of sketches that I did of him. I'll see if I can find them and put them on the screen. So that was the image that I had in my head, was this like cute, this sweet, dark-haired boy. The really crazy thing is that people tell my current boyfriend all the time. We'll be in like the checkout line at the grocery store, and people will say, has anybody ever told you you look like Keanu Reeves? And it's not like he's like his twin or something, but it's kind of insane that like that's what I was envisioning as I was writing things down, and now there's a person in my life who people say those things about. Like, I'm telling you, scripting, and I didn't even realize that's what it was called. Now I understand a lot more. I've kind of educated myself a little bit more. I've read more books. I've watched more YouTube videos. And so I understand that I was scripting, like that's what I was doing. I was writing down my intentions. Another crazy thing is like the way that we met, like where we met and how we met, was actually so freaking cute. Like, I was not that specific when I was writing things down. I didn't say anything about like where we would meet or how we would meet or when. I wasn't specific like that, and I think that's important too, because sometimes we get so hung up on the way that we want things to manifest in our lives that really what the universe is going to give you, or God or source, whatever you want to call it, what the universe actually is going to give you is so much better and so much more creative and aligned with what you believe in than you could even come up with yourself. With things that I've scripted now more recently, I always try to like detach a little bit and let go of exactly how that thing or person's gonna come into my life, because I've realized the universe is a lot more creative than I am. If you can let go of like the specifics, a lot of times I feel like that actually helps. So we ended up meeting in a bookstore. So I was working at a bookstore at the time. I've done a whole video on it. I can link it in the cards if you're interested, on like my experience working for like a corporate bookstore. And this was, I want to say it was like October of 2019. So like October of this year. I had journaled this at the beginning of the year. I feel like that's pretty quick. I don't need things to happen in my life overnight. The fact that it was like I intended it in 2019 and then it happened in 2019 is pretty crazy. I never would have written down, meet at a bookstore. Like, like that would not have been the meet cute that I would have written down, because I would have thought that would have been outside my bubble of believability. Basically, the idea is like you don't write anything down that is so ridiculous that you don't actually believe that it could happen, because that's not going to be super helpful, because if you don't think it can happen, then most likely it's going to be a lot harder to manifest. And so I didn't write down anything about like where or when we would meet. So he was like applying for a job at the bookstore and I was already working there. I was kind of against us hiring him because he had come in with like a group of guys. One of them had like stolen something. It was just like a pen or something, but he came in with a group of guys and one of them had taken something. And so when he applied for a job, I remember telling the other managers at the time, the other girls there, I was like, well, his friend came in and stole something, so I just don't know if we should hire him. It's hilarious to think about now, obviously, because if we hadn't hired him, like, he may not be, my boyfriend now. He may not have ever come into my life in a more meaningful way. It's like we both had things that didn't really align with, like, it didn't make sense that we would, like, end up together at all. He was also dating somebody at the time. Like, when we hired him on, he had a girlfriend. I remember being really disappointed that he had a girlfriend at the time. But yeah, I just didn't give him any of my focus. It didn't take very long for that relationship to fizzle. I don't know how long they'd been together. She ended up not being very honest with him, and then they broke up. So in March of 2020, we were out of work for that whole month, but we were like close enough, and he'd broken up with his girlfriend at the time. We were messaging on, I think we were DMing on Instagram. His phone was broken or something, so we couldn't text, but we were messaging each other on Instagram. The kind of dumb text that you have at the beginning before you, like, have both admitted to each other that you really like each other, before anyone's asked anyone out. It was just very much like we were just building a friendship, basically. That's something I will say was really important too, is we were friends first, and I think that's really helped us kind of stay strong as a couple. All of that to say, what I've heard some people do is they write down what they want, but then they always script the words "or better," because I never would have put down, like, we'll meet at a bookstore, because that would have been way outside the bubble of my own belief, because I just would have thought, no, that's too perfect and too cute, but then that ended up being the reality, which is crazy. I feel like it kind of opens you up to more creative possibilities. So long story short, we talked for about a year before we started dating. And then we started, like, hanging out a little bit. I would go over to his house and we'd watch movies. I would go over there and we would just do movie marathons. I remember his TV busted, and so I bought a projector at one point, and we put, like, a sheet up on the wall. It was November 2nd, 2020. That was our first date. So we went to the zoo for our first date. So yeah, that's basically the story. So all of this to say, don't underestimate the power of your thoughts. Don't underestimate the power of scripting. But I also think a key is to kind of learn to detach a little bit and just let it be. When I wrote that down, I did not flip back to this page every day and reread it and be like, I'm visualizing, I want this thing to happen. Like, I think we get too hung up on stuff sometimes, and it turns into a struggle, and we expend a lot of energy trying to make things happen, that there's something better for us that's going to happen anyway. We, like, cling to things a little bit too tightly. I've heard other people talk about this before with when they're trying to, like, attract something or manifest something. Don't chase it. Don't desire it so much and want it so bad that ends up being, like, the vibration that you're putting out. Because if you want something so bad, a lot of times that ends up being what we're putting out. Well, the definition of to want something is the lack of it. So it's like you're putting out into the world that you lack this thing. I wrote this and then I pretty much forgot about it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I did not flip back through. I was going back through old journals here just recently, like this past year, and I think it was 2022. And I flipped on this page and I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, John has, some of these things, maybe half of these things that came true. I wanted to share this story because I feel like it's really hopeful, and there's so much online around this topic that it feels very woo-woo and out there and intangible. And it's like, no, it can be really simple and really powerful and really life-changing if you just decide what you want, write it down, let it go, and let it come to you. It sounds so simple, and it really is. If we just kind of let it go and let it be, when things are meant for us, they're going to come to us. So I hope that you found this helpful. If that is all for me, I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye. What are you doing? This is Mommy's chair. Yeah. What are you doing?